Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, and this podcast is for high-performing, empathic women who are ready to stop second-guessing themselves and start trusting what they know. Maybe you're successful in your career or business. People rely on you. You make difficult decisions every day, and yet sometimes the moment someone else's emotions, expectations, or opinions enter the conversation, your own clarity starts to disappear. If you've ever wondered, how can I be so confident everywhere else in my life but struggle to trust myself when it comes to my own needs, you are in the right place. Each week, we'll explore self-trust, nervous system regulation, emotional energy, boundaries, intuition, and the everyday moments where your life changes, not because you've become someone new, but because you learn to stay connected to yourself. I'll share client stories, my own experiences, practical tools, and honest conversations to help you stop abandoning yourself and start creating a life that's truly your own. Because I believe you already know more than you trust, and that is a yes-filled life. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about intuition. Specifically, what do you do when your intuition contradicts what everyone else is telling you to do, and your intuition goes against conventional wisdom? Maybe it's when you know you should leave a job, or when you know you should stay in a marriage, or you know you should leave one, or you know that you need to move, or you know you shouldn't. Or maybe for you, it's knowing when you start a business and when it's time to leave your full-time job, or when it's time to take a sabbatical, or to say yes to something new. See, this is something that I've done over and over and over in my life, and it's gotten easier for me to discern, but my tendency as an empath has always been to prioritize what other people feel and say first. And so the thing that I teach you to do, to look inward first, is also what I need to know. I teach what I most need to know. And that's why I can help so many empaths, because I deeply understand what this experience is like. But in this case, I almost didn't get to spend the last 2 weeks of my dad's life with him. Almost. And it wasn't that I couldn't get there. It was that everyone who was involved in the situation told me not to go. So, to set the stage a little bit, it was 2024, and I was entering my second full-time year as an entrepreneur after having left education. And I got an intuitive hit early that year that I should give up my townhouse. Now, keep in mind, in 2022, I sold my townhouse. I rented an apartment for a brief period of time, like 11 months or something. I absolutely hated it. Moved into this townhouse, which was supposed to be the next best thing. And then I got this intuitive download that I was supposed to pack everything up, put it in storage, and go travel. And I even sounded crazy to me. Like, when I think back on what my friends and family must have thought, like when I say it out loud to you, I'm thinking, yeah, I would have questioned that too. But that's what I was guided to do. I had no idea how it was going to go. I had no idea if it would work. I had no idea if it was going to be a good idea or a terrible idea. I just knew I was taking the next step. And so I would take the next step and, put out some feelers for something. And So in June of 2024, I packed up everything, had the movers pack it up, take it away to long term storage, and went with my 2015 Prius and my dog Bentley, my Italian Greyhound, and off we went on our adventure. I had no idea really where we were going at the time. I knew I had some places in my mind that I wanted to hit. I knew that I was going to spend the first 3 weeks in Long Beach, Washington, because somebody had asked me to house sit. And so that seemed like a great idea. So that's where we went. That's where we started. And then I also knew that I had a trip planned to Madison, Wisconsin, but Madison, Wisconsin is quite a ways away from Portland, Oregon, if you looked at a map. And so I knew I was going to fly. So we drove back from Long Beach, stayed in a hotel for a couple of days, or maybe it was an Airbnb, I don't remember. And then I took Bentley to his dog sitters, spent some time with my daughter, and then dropped my car off at the airport and flew to Madison. I spent a week there, and this is really important timing because this goes into the story. So, this was at the end of June, beginning of July, 2024. And I flew back to Beaverton or to Portland and had decided that I was going to spend the 4th of July downtown Portland in a hotel there because I just really don't enjoy fireworks. I mean, that may be an unpopular opinion, but I would really prefer not to be around them. And so I wanted to kind of be in a concrete jungle so that I wouldn't be. And that was a great decision. So I spent that week in a hotel in downtown Beaverton in the round and absolutely loved it. And then I decided, okay, I think my adventure is ready to begin because I really didn't know where I was going to head after all this. So I decided I would go to Boise. Now, remember, I had lived in Boise from 2004 to 2021. So I have deep roots in Boise. And so I went to Boise and I was going to spend a week there. And then the way that I full time traveled was I gave myself permission to just book things as long as felt good and then just see what unfolded. So I didn't have any more than a week planned at a time, which you have to be able to tolerate a certain amount of uncertainty for that to even be okay. But I can because there's lots of other things that I've gone through that have really strengthened that muscle. So I got to Boise and I had a wonderful time that week in Boise. I rented this super cute studio ADU, like what is it called? Accessory dwelling unit. And it was so cute. It was just one of our favorite places. We had a little yard for Bentley. We were walking neighborhoods that we'd walked when we lived there, although Bentley wasn't alive yet. And I got to see my friends and I had so much fun. I decided to extend my trip. And so I booked another Airbnb for another week in Boise. And my friend Kathy had said, hey, if you ever want to come stay with us, let me know. And, this was really a paradigm shift because it created a new relationship dynamic because when I was living in Boise, we didn't tend to like spend the night at each other's houses because we just went home. And so this was kind of the beginning of a new paradigm in our friendship. And so I was taking it seriously, but I still rented this Airbnb. And it was a Saturday morning at the end of July. And I talked to my parents. And my dad had been doing poorly for a while. He had, some falls where he had, hurt himself and ended up with stitches. And he was having some health problems. And the year before, he had some heart issues and had a pacemaker installed. And, so it was not like he was healthy. He was doing okay. But something on that Saturday morning pinged. And I knew, I had to get back to Madison. I'd only been gone for 2 weeks. And so when I said to my family, I'm going to drive out to Madison, my mom said, absolutely not. Do not do it. My dad was like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. My sister said, I can't entertain you. I really need you to not come. And all of that felt honestly like a knife in the heart, but that's okay. I needed to realize how much they had put forward for my visit 2 weeks earlier, and they really had put it all forward, and it was a wonderful visit. And so I think they thought I was expecting it to be a big visit. And that also taught me a lot about how I could be an easier family member visiting, because I realized they perceived it to be heavy and hard when I visited. And so that was a lot to digest all in one moment. But the point is, my intuition was screaming that I needed to get to Madison. So I called Kathy, who is one of my closest friends. She's also my mentor. And I said exactly what I just said to you to her. And she said, "You're right. In fact, specifically, you need to be there by Wednesday." This was Saturday. And Madison is 24 hours of driving time away from Portland. And so I said, "Can I please take you up on your offer? I'm going to cancel my Airbnb and head to Madison." And she said, "Yes." And so I spent the night with her, and I was planning to spend actually Saturday night and Sunday and start heading out on Monday, because we both thought if I got there by Wednesday, that would be okay. Well, we were sitting together Saturday afternoon. We were getting ready to make some dinner, and my intuition pinged again. And I was like, "Kathy, I think I have to leave tomorrow. I don't think I can leave Monday. I think I have to leave tomorrow." And she said, "I think you're right. You got to go." Now, keep in mind, Kathy also has tremendous intuitive gifts, and she's my mentor. And so Kathy was absolutely in support of me following my intuition. She was my sounding board. And I really want to highlight that, because it would have been so much harder if that wasn't true, because of everything my family was saying about don't come. And so that morning, that Sunday morning, Bentley and I got up really early and we headed off. And it is not a short drive. So I had gone from Portland to Boise. So I'd shaved 6 hours off of the 24-hour drive, but I had 18 hours left to go. And I felt this deep anxiety in my body. I had to get there. I just had to go to Madison. And so I drove. I thought I was driving to Salt Lake, which is about 5 hours from Boise. And I got to Salt Lake and I was sort of getting ready to think about finding a hotel, because it's not like I arranged one. And as I was in Salt Lake, I just felt the urge, nope, it's too soon. You've got to get further. You've got to get further. Okay. So I got further. I got it all the way to Cheyenne. That was no small feat. So Bentley and I, it's hot. It's July. We're driving across Utah. We're driving across Wyoming. We get to Cheyenne. It's like sunset time. I don't even remember what time, but it was like sunset time. And I was seeing the signs, realizing I was there at Cheyenne Frontier Days. Now, if you don't know anything about Cheyenne, Wyoming, let me tell you, it is a rodeo town, and the biggest, is it indoor rodeo or outdoor rodeo of in the country happens in Cheyenne. Anyway, it's a big deal. And it's a big, big festival. And that means there's not that many hotels. So as I walked not walked, I drove into Cheyenne, I was thinking to myself, well, I have been guided here, so I'm just going to trust everything is going to be fine. But this could be dicey. This could be hard finding a hotel. But when you know it, the first place we pulled over at a rest area, I was like on my phone making reservations and got one. It was even affordable. Couldn't believe it. So we stayed there overnight. And then the next day, I thought to myself, well, I think I can make it to Lincoln, which is still a pretty big drive considering the heat. And I'm traveling with Bentley. And that means that when we stop, it's not like I run into the bathroom 5 minutes later, jump back into the car. And also, I'm a solo driver. Because even though I have company with Bentley, it's not like he's going to take a turn. So it just takes longer. So when you stop for like 30 minutes or 45 minutes, or at least that's how I travel with Bentley. So we ended up traveling through the rest of Wyoming and all the way through Nebraska on I-80. And we got to Lincoln that night, and I pulled over at a rest area just outside of Lincoln because I'm making decisions by the hour at this point because I can feel the energy shifting and changing so fast that I know that I don't want to be locked in even 12 hours in advance of any hotel stay. It's that kind of energy that's shifting. And so we got into this rest area just outside of Lincoln, and I found this Airbnb in South Lincoln that was just right off the interstate for us. And we got off, and I got to go have Taco John's, which it's a thing. If you know Taco John's, you know how rare they are. And I mean, I don't know that it's that high quality Mexican food, but I love Taco John's potato olays. Oh my gosh. So I had Taco John's potato olays, and so did Bentley. And we had a nice time that night, just relaxing a little bit in this big, cushy University of Nebraska themed Airbnb. And the next day, I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to make a reservation because I think I might be able to get to Madison. In the meantime, I'm calling my parents and my sister to update them on the progress, but I didn't tell them I was on the way until I was in Cheyenne. So I had driven from Boise to Cheyenne before I even let them know I was on the way, and they were not delighted. Let me put it that way. They were not delighted. Angry would be a better emotion to describe how they felt. And so I'm going not only against what they're telling me, but I'm making them mad in doing it. And yet everything in my body said, you have to get to Madison. So I kept driving. That would have been Monday night that we spent in Madison. And then Bentley and I got up early the next morning. We drove through Iowa and we drove through parts of Wisconsin. And we realized, I mean, it was a long day because this was my third day driving and I was getting tired, quite frankly. And so my stops were getting longer and it was just harder. And I kept thinking, I think we can get to Madison. And we stopped at a rest area in Iowa, like right at the edge of Iowa and Wisconsin, and called and let them know I was close. And everyone was like, okay. But nobody wanted to see us. Like they were busy, they had their life to live. And this was a really important lesson for me in that just because my intuition is pinging doesn't mean theirs is. And just because my intuition is pinging doesn't mean somebody else has to take care of me or make it easier for me because I was going against what they said. So, what I'm trying to unpack here a little bit is if we're going to go against what somebody says, we have to be willing to be responsible for our own selves. And so I made the decision in that rest area that I was going to make myself a reservation, and it wasn't even going to be a conversation about who needed to put me up or who needed to take care of me. No one did. I was going to take care of me, which by the way, that's my shtick. Like if push comes to shove, that's going to be what I'm going to do in a stress response is like, no, never mind. I got it. Um, so maybe you can see yourself in that. So anyway, I drove to Madison. It was dark as I was pulling in, and I was feeling really sad because I had driven many, many hours across the country to see my family. They were mad that I was coming, and they didn't have time to see me, and it felt like they didn't really want to see me. And so I had arranged with one of my friends that I might come to her house in Ohio if it didn't work out in Madison, and maybe I would just come there anyway. And I was just going to maybe stop through. And so I said that. I said that to my family. Well, maybe what I'll do is spend the night. If it works tomorrow to see you, great. If not, I'm just going to keep on going and I'm going to go out to Ohio and then maybe I'll go down to North Carolina. And I had this whole plan. Well, as I was pulling in to Madison and I was thinking, wow, this is so wild. Like I'm pulling into the town where my family lives and nobody's nobody cares. Nobody wants to see me. And so I decided, even though I felt like teary and emotional, I was going to call my parents one more time and just let them know I was close so that they could make a decision if they wanted to see me the next day or not, or if I was going to keep on going. And my mom called and she was kind of mad. Not kind of, I'm softening that. She was mad. And my dad said, just let her come. And so they arranged for me to meet them down in one of the rooms that they had there at the place where they live, that is like a public room, because I couldn't leave Bentley in the car because it was too hot and Bentley's not allowed in their apartment. And so it was a thing, which was the other complicating factor, right? Is I'm traveling with the dog to my family who's allergic to dogs. And oh my goodness, it was like one thing after the other. So we got to meet inside this room, and Bentley got to meet my parents. And that was the first time that that had ever happened. And it was really special. And then everything softened when I got there. My dad was so glad to see me. And my mom even decided she was glad to see me because my mom realized that since I was there, I could stay with my dad while she went to a concert the next night. And so I arranged last minute for Bentley to do a rover stay for 3 days at somebody's house, and I would just stay with my parents. And so I spent one night in the hotel there, and then the next 3 days I spent in my parents' house while Bentley spent time in a rover place. And that allowed me, oh, that allowed me to spend some really important days with my dad. So that Wednesday night, my mom got to go to the concert, and my dad and I were just sitting in the family room together, and he started talking and he started telling stories. And I said, Dad, I love these stories. How would you feel if I just turned on my voice memo app and started to record? And he said, Yeah, that'd be fine. And so I did that, put it between us, and my dad told stories for the rest of the evening. And then my mom got home from the concert. She'd had fun, she'd had a break. We all got some sleep, woke up the next day, and my mom comes busting out of the bedroom because I was sleeping on the couch, and had this little sticky note in her hand, and she's like, "Your dad told me about what you did last night with the recorder. And here are some other things that he wants to talk about today." And they had this whole sticky note list of bullet point things. And so my dad and I sat together at the dining room table for hours. That day was the Thursday. We sat together for hours. We did it again on Friday. I have literal hours of my dad speaking. And it was so meaningful and it was so fun. And everyone kept saying, How long are you going to stay? How long are you going to stay? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm planning it by the day. I know I'm here for 3 days. And 3 days turned into 5 weeks because a few days after I got there like late Tuesday night, spent Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night with them, had decided I was going to get a hotel and move into a hotel on Saturday. And I was just going to stay for like 3 more nights. Well, on Saturday, things turned for my dad. And he called us all together and we had this like big goodbye thing. Like we thought he was dying. Honestly, we thought he was dying. And we sang songs and we held his hand and he was kind of slipping in and out. And it was really emotional and really meaningful. And we got my daughter on FaceTime and it was a whole thing. And then at a certain point, we're like, I think he's asleep. I'm really hungry. Maybe we should order some lunch. So we ordered some lunch and we got DoorDash or something. And I think it was Panera bread. And the order arrives and my dad smells food and his eyes blink open and he's like, Hey, is it lunch? We all just busted out laughing. And then the next few days were like in and out, in and out. All this is to say it was a number of days later before he passed. And I would not have gotten to spend that time with him or with my family or to be supportive to my mom, to my sister. I ended up staying in an apartment in the retirement place where my parents live for a number of days. I don't remember. It's a little bit foggy, but Bentley got to stay there with me. Bentley eventually made his way all the way into my parents' apartment and got to spend some time with my dad, which was really meaningful. And my mom and my sister and I were with my dad when he passed. And it was one of the hardest, but also most incredibly beautiful experiences I've ever had. And I don't know if you ever lost anybody close to you before, but if you have, maybe you'll get this and or maybe maybe I'm just weird. Well, we know I'm weird, but death is funny. Like I have known for a while that I have a twisted sense of humor, but oh my gosh, death is funny. And so there were some stories. I'm not going to tell you all of them today, but the point is, it was a really moving experience and it wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have trusted my intuition. And I had to move against really significant energy. I had to move against the people not wanting me to be there. I had to work through my own stories about can I do this on my own? I had to work through how can I be more self responsible so that I'm not a burden and I'm more of a help. I had to work through what does it mean if my family doesn't want to see me? What does it mean? Well, it didn't mean anything. It meant everybody was fucking overwhelmed because my dad was dying. But the point is, when we get these intuitive hits, we have opportunities to really trust them or not. And intuition almost never arrives with unanimous approval. In fact, I can tell you it has never arrived for me with unanimous approval. The people who love us most simply can't necessarily see what we're interpreting. It doesn't make them wrong. And it doesn't necessarily make us right either. That's really important. It just means no one can see your inner knowing but you. And if we're outsourcing our inner knowing to someone else, whether that's a family member, a friend, a coach, we're missing the opportunity to more deeply connect with our own intuition. So, a couple of weeks ago on the episode, What I'd Tell You If I Didn't Want to Hurt Your Feelings, I told you that I won't tell someone to leave a marriage and that I won't tell someone to quit a job. And the reason is I would not be the one that had to live with those consequences. I can guide you to your own clarity. I can support you through the decision making process. I can tell you what intuitive guidance is coming through from your team of light. And in the same way, my family could not make this decision for me. Only I could, because only I saw it. This is one of the reasons why power exists, quite literally, because I needed to strengthen my own relationship with myself so that when life asks you to do something really, really fucking difficult, you can hear your own voice. So this is really alive for me because as I'm recording it, it's August 1st, 2026. We're approaching this 2-year anniversary. And you hear emotion in my voice, but it's not the grief that you think it is. I mean, maybe there's a level of grief there, but it's also like gratitude. And I have such deep appreciation for those times that I got to spend with my dad. And I'm so proud of myself for trusting myself. I had every opportunity to turn around. I had every opportunity. They told me to turn around. People had offered me places to stay all along the way. And I knew I had to be in Madison. There are these moments in life where you're not going to have an obvious answer. You're going to need space to untangle fear, obligation, grief, other people's opinions, other people's emotions, and then figure out where your own knowing is. And that's a big part of what we do inside my private coaching. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I will help you hear yourself. So I think often when I'm getting ready to do something scary, the people are telling me not to do or telling me I can't do, I think often about the muscle memory that I've created for myself about what it feels like to trust. And one of the things that I was trusting today is I have this content plan built out that I was going to talk to you about specific things this week. And today it just feels so loud. It feels like I have to talk to you about this. And I don't know why I'm so emotional about this, but I feel deeply emotional because I need you to trust yourself. I need you to believe that you actually have all the knowledge inside you. You just don't yet feel safe enough to trust it. And I want you to trust it because the reward on the other side is absolutely incredible. And so also this is, tied up in my own emotions. I've held a ton of readings this week, a ton of paid readings, and literally hundreds of readings on TikTok. And so maybe there's fatigue at play too. Also, the astrology right now, dear Lord, it's a lot. I'm a Pisces sun, a Cancer moon, and not a Cancer moon, a Sagittarius moon, and a Cancer rising. I am being hit with the Mercury retrograde and the Saturn retrograde and the blah, blah, blah. And so I'm emotional and I am also remembering, and my body is remembering. And I really need you to understand and believe that you can be emotional and it doesn't mean you're dysregulated. I'm going to say that again. You can be emotional and it doesn't mean you're not regulated because I am very regulated. I'm also very emotional. And I also just kind of wanted to share with you that this experience was the week that marked the beginning of a journey that has changed my life. It changed my life because now I'm walking with my dad in spirit form, who, by the way, comes to visit often. Often. He was here at lunch today. And it's so cute. Bentley often is the first to feel and see when my dad is visiting. And and so even though I miss him in physical form, I still have contact with him in spirit form, and that feels really good. But also, I really want you to know you're not alone in this. And that sometimes it does feel really hard to trust your intuition. And sometimes people that you love kind of hurt your feelings when you trust your intuition. And you can still work it out with them. You can learn to hear and feel and see their perspective, and you can get stronger in your own intuition. And that's also part of a yes filled life. So thank you for letting me connect with you on this anniversary. Thank you for listening. If this meant something to you, would you share it with somebody? Because I know there's somebody out here who needs this message. And maybe it's you. And maybe you also know somebody that needs to hear it. And I really love you. I believe in you. And I'll talk to you soon.